I had been secretly married to the Navy commander for 6 years. And everyone at the base thought I had been chasing him relentlessly, pestering him like a persistent military doctor. He tacitly allowed all of this and never explained himself. Until one day, at a celebration party after a joint military exercise, someone publicly humiliated me. Zoe, our commander's fiancée, is the daughter of a diplomat. Stop dreaming, they said. Even he, holding a glass of wine, looked indifferent. His gaze distant. Zoe, don't waste your time on me. In my previous life, I had desperately shown our marriage certificate, but all I got was a single word, nonsense. To protect the diplomat's daughter's face, he personally locked me up for 7 days. Later, when I sailed with the fleet and we were attacked by pirates, I barely survived and sent out a distress signal. Yet, he missed the best time to rescue me. All to accompany the diplomat's daughter to a opera. That was when I understood I was just a disposable pawn to him. This time around, I looked at his ever-indifferent face and smiled. Well, then I wished the commander and the diplomat's daughter 100 years of happiness. I said, by the way, my transfer application has been approved. Goodbye. Jude's icy face finally showed a crack. Wendy, standing next to him, froze, her triumphant smile faltering. She turned to look at Jude, panic flickering in her eyes. Jude. This? I didn't give her a chance to finish, turning and walking away. In my previous life, I had hysterically screamed and pulled out our marriage certificate at that very celebration. Everyone had been stunned. Then, what on a sigh, Jude had torn that red certificate in front of everyone, claiming it was forged. I had been locked up for 7 days. And when I came out, half my hair had turned white. This time, I couldn't be bothered to show any evidence. In front of someone who doesn't care about you, any struggle is meaningless. Zoe. Jude chased after me. I didn't stop. The footsteps grew closer behind me. And in the next moment, my wrist was grabbed. I halted, not resisting, just turning my head to look at him. His face was grim. What game are you playing this time? Transfer? Who approved it? In my previous life, when I had desperately grabbed his collar and demanded to know why he didn't save me, he had said the same thing. Zoe, what's your problem now? I snapped out of my thoughts and pulled out the transfer order from my bag with my other hand. Chloe, having fulfilled my answer. Take a good look. It's directly approved by the military hospital. Your authority doesn't cover this. His pupils contracted sharply. This transfer order had been exchanged for the favor I owed to the grandson of a high-ranking military official I saved. In my previous life, I hadn't asked for anything in return. But that official had said he owed me a huge favor. This time, I had used that favor in advance. Jude snatched the document, scanning it quickly. His face went from shock to bewilderment. And finally, to a dark scowl. Cancel it, he said, staring at me. I don't approve. I smiled, pulling my wrist out of his tight grip and took a step forward. You think you can stop me? I raised my head. Is it because of our shameful marriage certificate? Or because you've allowed everyone to humiliate me for 6 years? He opened his mouth but didn't speak. I took another step forward. Jude, you mean nothing to me anymore. At the end of the hallway, Wendy appeared, strutting in her high heels. She stepped in front of me, her face full of feigned concern. Zoe, how can you speak to Jude like that? He's been so patient with you all these years. And you? I interrupted her. Move. You? I said. Move. My voice was calm, but Wendy took a step back. She bit her lip, eyes reddening. Zoe, I never meant to be your enemy. I just love Jude. Is that a crime? No. I nodded. But standing in my way is. With that, I walked past her. She yelled from behind. Zoe, without Jude's protection, you're nothing. I stopped, turned around, and looked at her. Is that so? Isn't me leaving making room for you? Wendy's face changed. She rushed toward me. But a hand stopped her. I didn't know when Jude had come over. He grabbed Wendy's wrist, his face dark. Wendy. Stop it. Tears instantly welled up in Wendy's eyes. Jude. Did you see? She's humiliating me like this. She doesn't care about you at all. Jude said nothing. Only looking at me. Chloe, heading fulfilled my obsession. I wish you and Wendy happiness. After saying this, I walked away without looking back. The transfer order was blocked. The reasons given were all official sounding. There was a high-security medical research project at the base. And I was a core member who couldn't be transferred without approval. I stared at the notice, almost laughing out loud. I was just a regular military surgeon. When had I become a core member of a research project? I hadn't even touched that project. I knew this was Jude's doing. He was used to controlling everything. Used to making everyone operate according to his will. The phone rang while I was organizing medical records. Chloe's mother's voice came through the receiver. As condescending as ever. Zoe. I hear you've been quite restless lately? I didn't respond. She continued. I understand that young people have a temper. But you need to be sensible. Chloe's family isn't a place for someone like you to climb into. And of course, you can't just leave whenever you want. Come back. Apologize to Jude. And pretend this never happened. I gripped the phone tighter. Then let go. Bant. You can keep that blessing for yourself. I hung up. Revenge came quickly. The next day, having fulfilled my stay, rumors spread around the base. They said I had poor medical ethics. Used my position to harass superiors. And was desperate to marry into a wealthy family. The rumors spread with vivid detail. So much so that it was hard to tell truth from fiction. While I was in the cafeteria, I overheard whispers behind me. Did you hear she's been the commander's underground lover for 6 years? And now she's trying to climb up? Such shamelessness. He already has a Fiang key. And she's still not giving up. I carried my tray and walked by. And those people immediately fell silent. It was clear as day that these rumors came from Chloe's family. They wanted to ruin my reputation. Make it impossible for me to stay in the military. And force me to crawl back to them in shame. Unfortunately, having fulfilled my someone who has already died once no longer cares about such things. 3 days later, there was an international event at the base. With for unmilitary attaches visiting for an exchange. Wendy, as the daughter of a diplomat, was also there, accompanying them. I, as the duty doctor in the medical office, just had to stay on standby. In the afternoon, a foreign military attaché suddenly collapsed, breathing heavily, his face turning purple, severe anaphylactic shock. Everyone panicked, and someone rushed into the medical office to call me. I immediately assessed the situation and shouted, "First aid kit. Bring the adrenaline." Someone opened the first aid kit, then froze. "Doctor, there's no adrenaline." A loud buzz rang in my head. How could it be missing? I had just checked the first aid kit yesterday. And all the medicines were accounted for. The foreign military attaché's breathing grew weaker. And the people around me began accusing me. How could it be missing? What kind of management is this in your medical office? Who's responsible when someone dies? I remained calm. Contact the nearest hospital immediately and have them send over the medicine. In the meantime, administer oxygen to the patient and ensure the airway is clear. I knelt on the ground and began performing CPR. Fortunately, the medicine arrived in time, and the military attaché was eventually out of danger. The investigation report came out, and the blame fell entirely on me. The inspection records clearly stated that the first aid kit had been checked yesterday with no issues. But now, that record was gone. In its place was a forged document, showing that the first aid kit hadn't been inspected in 3 days. I lifted my head and looked at Wendy, standing by the door. She held a cup of coffee. Her smile gentle. "Zoe, you're not thinking of doing something foolish, are you? After all, such a big thing happened. If it were me, I wouldn't even know how to face it." I stood up and walked over to her. "You think this can ruin me? Ruin you?" She laughed even more happily. "Zoe, you overestimate yourself. You're just a mistake Jude made. A stain he will get rid of sooner or later. I'm just helping him clear the garbage ahead of time. Guess what would happen if that military attaché had really died? Manslaughter? An international dispute? Or would you be sent straight to a military tribunal? I stared at her. This woman, willing to go to any lengths to marry Jude, had completely lost her mind. That evening, I received a disciplinary notice. Suspended from duty. Awaiting further investigation. I was shoved into the isolation room. And the iron door slammed shut behind me. On the third day, Jude arrived. As long as you admit it was your negligence, I'll step in to protect you. He said. You'll be given a serious warning and a demotion. But at least you'll stay in the army. This is the best way out for you. I didn't move. He continued. Zoe. Don't be stubborn. You can't fight the Chloe family. And you can't fight the Wendy family. Admit your fault. And this matter will end here. He was offering me a way out. But only if I kneeled and admitted to a mistake I never made. Admit that my medical ethics were corrupt. Admit that I was incompetent. Admit that I didn't deserve the military uniform. I suddenly laughed. Laughing at how I had fallen for this man in my past life. That year, when I first joined the army and was intern at the military hospital, he was a special forces commander. During an exercise accident, he was injured by shrapnel and lost so much blood that he fell unconscious. It was I who, on a makeshift operating table, literally pulled 3 pieces of shrapnel from his chest. When he woke up, his first question was what my name was. That was the first thing he ever said to me. Afterward, he began awkwardly pursuing me. I thought his indifference was just an act. I was wrong. His indifference was never an act. It was his true nature. What if I told you it was Wendy who did this? I raised my eyes. My voice calm. His brows immediately furrowed. A flicker of impatience crossing his face. Zoe. Stop causing trouble and dragging innocent people into this. I know Wendy. And she could never do something like this. To him, Wendy was always innocent. And I was always the one causing trouble. Lying. Making excuses. You know her? I stood up and walked to the iron bars. Jude let out a low sigh. What do you know about her? I stared into his eyes. You know I wouldn't shirk responsibility. You know I've never had a medical incident in the 6 years I've been a doctor. You know how much I value a soldier's honor. Yet you choose to believe her, not me. Because the evidence is against you. His voice was colder now. The first aid kit is your responsibility. The adrenaline is under your management. How am I supposed to trust you? I smiled, my eyes stinging. Well, what if I tell you that someone tampered with the first aid kit the day before the event? What if I tell you that Wendy knew about the foreign military attached peanut allergy? What if I tell you she deliberately added peanut powder to the snacks she arranged? His expression didn't change. Do you have proof? My heart stopped for a second. He didn't care about the truth. All he wanted was my submission. No, I concealed all emotions. But I will find it. Zoe. His voice was lowered to a near whisper. Stop struggling in vain. Admit fault. Accept the punishment. It's for both our good. I stepped back. Jude. When have you ever considered what's good for me? He didn't respond. I stared at him. This man, who once made my heart flutter, now only made me feel pity. Jude. Soon you'll come begging me. Remember. It will be you begging me. He froze for a second, and the contempt in his eyes nearly overflowed. Looks like 7 days in solitary confinement isn't enough for you. He turned to leave. You can keep dreaming. At the military tribunal, Wendy sat in the front row of the spectators. Jude was sitting beside the judgment seat. The duty records were presented, with my signature on them. But the time had been tampered with. 3 nurses testified, claiming that I had been distracted that day, that the first aid kit had been checked, and that I had moved it later on without authorization. I listened to these lies without rebutting a single word. The judge finished flipping through the last page of the case file and looked up. Zoe, jutting fulfilled wide sigh. Do you have any defense against the charges? There was a murmur from the audience. I looked around. None of them were on my side. Of course. I had always been alone. My gaze finally landed on Jude. His face still expressionless. Your Honor. I spoke up. My defense has nothing to do with this medical failure. The judge frowned. Zoe. What are you talking about? I didn't pause. I request the court to file an investigation against Navy Commander Jude for illegal imprisonment and for endangering the health and lives of soldiers. The room fell silent. I turned to Jude, and his face had already changed. Because he married me under false pretenses for 6 years. Using me as a living blood bank and a mobile medicine cabinet for his deceased sister Chloe. Jude suddenly stood up. I stared at him and continued. Furthermore, I suspect that 6 years ago, when I first joined the army, I was illegally administered blood product from Chloe in what was called a medical accident. The room erupted in chaos. The judge banged the gavel. Quiet. Wendy's face turned ashen. And she suddenly stood up. You're lying. Chloe already dead, right? I interrupted her. But the official story from the Chloe family was that she was receiving treatment abroad, and every year, Chloe would go visit her sister. I pulled a document from my pocket and raised it high. These are all my medical examination and blood test records from the past 6 years. Every single time, the blood drawn far exceeded the normal amount, yet the usage column has always been left blank. The judge took the folder, his expression growing darker with each page he flipped. Utter nonsense. Jude roared. Ignoring him, I slid a small encrypted USB drive toward the judge. This contains the hidden medical files Jude tried to erase. I made a copy and decrypted it. The judge inserted the drive into the computer. Lines of data began to flash across the screen. Patient, Chloe. Rare genetic disorder. Documented cases worldwide, fewer than 20. Requires specific blood type match. Transfusion frequency, twice per month. Donor code since 6 years ago, YZX1. My initials. Chloe was diagnosed at 12. I continued evenly. And at 18. During my enlistment medical, I was found to have a rare antibody in my blood. 3 months later, in what was called a medical mishap, I was transfused with an unknown blood product. The courtroom erupted. Jude's eyes locked on me, finally betraying panic. Zoe, do you even know what you're saying? I turned toward him and, for the first time, smiled. Oh, I know exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying that to save your sister. You turned me into a living blood bank. His face turned ashen. Your suspicions don't make them facts. He stammered. Where's your proof? I didn't answer him, only met the judge's gaze. Another file popped up on the screen. The original report from that so-called transfusion accident 6 years ago. The surgeon's signature, the Chloe family's private physician. The blood source field altered. But digital archives don't lie. Jude staggered back a step. This involves family privacy. He turned sharply to the judge. This is military classified information, I demand. Before he could finish, a synchronized rhythm of boots echoed from the back of the room. Several officers in varied uniforms rose from the audience. The man in front displayed his ID. Military Commission of Discipline Inspection. We're taking over this case. Jude's face went from blue to bone white. He knew once the commission stepped in, there was no burying it anymore. We have reason to suspect Commander Jude of conducting illegal medical experiments, unlawful detention, and endangering military personnel. The officer declared coldly. An investigation begins immediately. Two military police officers approached Jude. He turned toward me. Eyes wild but inside. I felt nothing. The investigators worked fast. Within an hour, they recovered the missing epinephrine syringe from Wendy's office. The fingerprints on it weren't hers but her assistant's. The judge struck his gavel again. Defendant Zoe acquitted. 5. My transfer order finally came through. The official seal of the Central Military Hospital was crisp and unmistakable. The Chloe family was in chaos over the scandal. Jude was placed under isolation review. And Wendy had been trying unsuccessfully to see me. I thought it was over, that I could finally start anew. But life has its cruel sense of timing. I crouched on the bathroom floor of my dorm, staring at the 2 red lines on the pregnancy test. The child I had prayed for in my past life and never conceived had come now, when all I wanted was distance. I covered my mouth as tears splashed onto the cold tile. I couldn't laugh, even if I tried. This child was the final thread tying me to Jude. I stood, tossed the test stick into the trash, and stared at my pale reflection in the mirror. Zoe. What a joke you are. 3 days later. News spread. Jude had been released from isolation. He was still suspended. But free. I nearly dropped the mug in my hand when I heard. That's impossible. A colleague lowered her voice. Word is. Wendy's family pulled strings. The foreign ministry intervened, said the evidence chain was incomplete. And a key witness has died. So. Wendy's father had finally stepped in. I should have known. The Chloe family alone couldn't suppress a scandal that big. There's more. My colleague hesitated. Say it. It's on TV right now. Jude and Wendy just got engaged. She handed me her phone. On the screen, a news broadcast played. Jude stood tall in his tailored uniform. Wendy leaning sweetly against him. Smiling with practiced grace. A reporter asked. Commander Jude. We heard there were false accusations made against you recently. Jude's tone was detached. Just slander from malicious sources. The matter's been clarified. Wendy took his arm. Her voice soft. Jude's been under a lot of pressure. I'll be here for him. Always. The camera zinged and the diamond ring on her finger glittered like frost. I handed the phone back. My voice calm. Got it. Zoe. Are you? My colleague began cautiously. I'm fine. 6. A few days later. I received an anonymous parcel. Inside was a copy of my pregnancy report and a single note. For the child's sake. You know what to do. I kicked the box into the trash. When I turned. Mrs. Chloe was standing at the end of the hallway. She wore a tailored coat. Her makeup flawless, yet no amount of powder could hide the venom on her face. How did you get in here? I asked coldly. She didn't answer. She brushed past me and into the room. Standing in the middle of my small apartment. Zoe. What do you want? She demanded. Money? Status? The Chloe name? I shut the door behind me and leaned against it. None of those. Then why won't you save Chloe? She snapped. Her voice rising. She's your sister-in-law. You're carrying her nephew. How can you be this heartless? Mrs. Chloe, hadn't fulfilled my sigh. I said quietly. Your son used my body as his personal blood bank for 6 years. If anyone's heartless here, it isn't me. That was to save Chloe's life. She screamed. Losing all composure. She's been frail since birth when we finally found a matching donor. What were we supposed to do? Watch her die? So you lied to me. Used me. Ruined me. All justified? Mrs. Chloe lunged forward and gripped my shoulders. Her nails digging into my skin. Zoe. I'll make this simple. Either you treat Chloe and get rid of that bastard child, take the money and disappear, or. Her voice dropped, cold and venomous. I'll make sure you and that baby disappear from this world instead. I shoved her off. She stumbled, catching herself against the wall. Get out. I said icily. You. Now. Out. My voice was calm. Final. She hesitated. Then turned and stormed out. Heels clicking furiously against the floor. And for a long moment, I just stood there listening to the echo fade into silence. She glared at me for a long time before finally turning away. I stood there. One hand resting on my lower abdomen. The baby hadn't started kicking yet. But I could feel his presence. I'm sorry. I thought. Mama might not be able to protect you. The next night. Jude came. He stood outside the door. Thinner than before. Stubble shadowing his jaw. His eyes bloodshot. Zoe. He said hoarsely. I know you're in there. I opened the door. His gaze dropped to my stomach and stayed there for a long time. So you know. I said quietly. He nodded. Staring hard at my belly. It's my child. Yes. His Adam's apple bobbed. His eyes turned red. Zoe. Please. I'm begging you, save Chloe. And keep our baby safe. If you agree. I'll give you anything you want. Get out. He froze. Jude. You heard me. Get out. He stepped forward. I stepped back. Zoe, you think that just because you're begging, I'll soften? My gaze locked on his. You think that if you offer me money, power, or status, I'll forget what you did to me? I know I was wrong. Wrong about what? I cut him off. Wrong for not locking me up tighter? Or wrong for letting Wendid to obvious? The color drained from his face. Jude, let out a low sigh. You've never once felt guilty. You're here because you need my blood and my baby. That's all. I slammed the door shut and pressed a trembling hand against it. My heart ached so much it felt like it might burst. But I couldn't let myself waver. Not in this life. Not again. 3 days later. As I stepped out of the hospital after work, a black car screeched to a halt in front of me. The doors flew open to men in black rushed out. I turned to run. But something struck the back of my head. Darkness swallowed everything. When I woke, I was lying on a white bed. Outside the window stretched an endless expanse of sea. The room was filled with medical equipment. Surveillance cameras mounted on the walls. I tried to sit up, pain flared in my abdomen. The door opened. A girl in a wheelchair was rolled in. Sister-in-law. She smiled weakly. Finally, having fulfilled my abscess. I get to see you. I stared at her. Unable to speak. She lowered her eyes to her hands. My brother said you hate me. I know no. It's because of me that you've suffered so much. Then she looked up, tears shimmering. But I don't want to die. Sister-in-law. I really don't want to die. The door opened again. Jude entered. He locked it behind him. His gaze a mixture of pain and resolve. Zoe. He said softly. I'm sorry. He stepped closer to the bed. I can't watch my sister die. I shrank back until my spine hit the wall. You'll stay here and rest. He said. When the baby is born. When Chloe recovers, I'll let you go. I swear. I began cooperating. Drawing blood for Chloe every day. Monitoring her indicators. Adjusting her medication. Within a week, her complexion visibly improved. Chloe's mother wept with joy, gripping my hands. Zoe. I knew you had a good heart. I pulled my hands free and turned back to the medicine table. That night, I claimed I needed quiet and convinced Jude to dismiss of the staff. Chloe's condition is at a critical stage. Any disturbance could ruin everything. I warned. He hesitated. I added, unless you want her to die. He clenched his jaw and agreed. 3 days later. Only 5 people remained on the island: me, Jude, Chloe's mother, Chloe, hadn't fulfilled my obsession, and a driver. I started talking to Chloe more. Do you hate me, sister-in-law? She asked softly. I sat beside her bed. No. But because of me. You, Chloe, hadn't fulfilled my obsession. I interrupted. Does your brother love you? She blinked. Startled. Tears slid down her cheeks. Of course. My brother loves me more than anyone. Then why does he let you live like this? Her eyes wide and in confusion. You lie here every day. Surviving on someone else's blood. Never seeing the sun. Is that love or his obsession with saving you? No. That's not true. He doesn't love you, Chloe. He loves the version of himself who can save you. Chloe covered her ears. Trembling violently. I didn't stop. Chloe. Your life shouldn't be built on another person's sacrifice. She broke down in sobs. At the door. I looked back at her. Think carefully about what kind of life you really want. 10 days later. A violent storm hit the island. I jolted awake. Gasping for air. Jude burst in. Joey. I clutched my belly. Something's wrong with the baby. His face turned deathly pale. He scooped me into his arms and ran toward the medical room. From the corridor came a piercing scream. Chloe's mother. Chloe fainted. Jude froze mid-step, holding me tightly. He turned toward her voice. Jude, let out a low sigh. Hurry. She's dying. Chloe's mother shrieked. I closed my eyes. My voice weak. Put me down. Go save your sister. Jude. His mother shouted. What are you doing? Chloe's dying. Mom, hadn't to sell my obsession. The baby. What's a baby compared to Chloe? She's your sister. Jude gripped tight and around me as he rushed toward the medical room. Ignoring her. Behind us came her furious curses. He laid me on the bed, fumbling to check my vitals. I caught his hand. Go save Chloe. Zoe, go. He hesitated, then turned and ran. The moment he was gone, I sprang from the bed and ran to the communications room. Jude was performing CPR on Chloe when he saw me. His whole body stiffened. "You." I ignored him. Yanked open a drawer. And pulled out a black emergency transmitter. A military-grade distress beacon. My last safeguard. I pressed the button. Jude lunged toward me. "Zoe. What did you do?" I backed away. What I should have done long ago. Half an hour later. The whir of helicopter blades filled the sky. Chloe's mother collapsed to the floor. Her face ashen. Jude stood by the window. Fists clenched tight as the aircraft descended. The helicopter door opened. Out stepped officers from the Military Discipline Committee and the Supreme Prosecutor's Office. The leading officer saluted Jude. Then produced an arrest warrant. Jude. You are under arrest for illegal imprisonment, unauthorized medical experimentation, and endangering the life and health of a military officer." Jude turned to look at me. I stood at the helicopter's doorway. Soldiers armed behind me. "Chloe," I said with a cold smile. "I told you you'd come begging me one day." The color drained from his face. Chloe's mother crawled to me, clutching my leg. "Zoe. Please spare Jude." I forced him. It was all my fault. I looked down at her, this woman, who once stood so high above me, now kneeling in the dirt. "Mrs. Jude, I begged you once too." I crouched to meet her eyes. "And what did you say then?" "You told me to disappear from this world with my child." I stood, turned, and stepped into the helicopter. Chloe followed behind, pausing only to glance back at her brother. "Brother," she whispered. "I'm sorry." She said nothing more and walked away without looking back. The helicopter lifted off, and the island grew smaller and smaller in the distance. I gazed out the window, one hand resting gently over my abdomen. The Chloe family's world came crashing down. I was sent to the Central Military Hospital for a full medical examination. The day the report came out, every member of the Military Commission at Discipline Inspection was present. I read the results to them, item by item. Over the past 6 years, I had been subjected to 173 illegal blood extractions. Traces of unknown pharmaceutical agents were found in my bloodstream. Drugs they had injected into me to make my blood more compatible with Chloe's condition. The chairman of the military commission trembled visibly. "Jude. That bastard." Chloe sat beside me, tears dripping onto her knees. "Sis-in-law. I'm sorry." I stood and walked to the window. Outside, journalists had already surrounded the hospital courtyard. The Chloe family scandal could no longer be contained. 3 days later, the trial began. In the courtroom, Jude stood in the defendant's dock, wearing a prison uniform. He had lost weight, stubble shadowed his jaw, and bloodshot eyes spoke of sleepless nights. When he saw me, his lips parted slightly, as if to speak. I turned my head away. The prosecutor began reading the charges. Illegal confinement, abuse of power, leading unauthorized medical experimentation, endangering the health and lives of military personnel. Each accusation alone was enough to bury him for life. Mrs. Chloe sat in the gallery, her face pale as death. She suddenly shouted, "Zoe! You vile woman! You destroyed my son!" The bailiffs rushed forward to restrain her. She kept cursing, voice hoarse and hysterical. I sat quietly in the witness stand, saying nothing. Wendy was there too, in the gallery, her expression unsettled and guilty. When Chloe took the stand as a key witness, she was in a wheelchair, her voice faint but steady. "My brother told me that my sister-in-law volunteered. He said she loved him and was willing to do anything for me. I believed him." She lifted her head, tears rolled down her cheeks. Until I saw the needle marks on her wrists. Saw her locked inside that room. Saw her trying to escape. Only then did I realize that my life was built upon someone else's suffering. Jude abruptly stood up. "Chloe, qu'est-il fait session? What are you talking about?" The guards pressed him back into his seat. But Chloe didn't stop. "Brother. I hate you. You destroyed her and you destroyed me." Jude's face turned chalk white. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. The verdict was delivered soon after. Life imprisonment. stripped of all military rank and honors. Mrs. Chloe fainted on the spot. 3 months later, I went to the prison. Jude sat behind the glass partition, his hair half turned to gray. When he saw me, his eyes lit up for a brief moment, then dimmed again. "Zoe," he rasped. I said nothing. "Why?" His voice cracked. "I already regretted it." His hand pressed against the glass. "I was going to call off the engagement. I just wanted to save Chloe first. I thought we still had time." "Jude," I said quietly, my voice flat and tired, "you still don't understand." 9. I braced a hand against the glass. My belly was visibly rounded now. "Your regret only ever surfaced when you needed me. You loved your power, your family, and that helpless sister who made you feel like a hero. But you never loved me." The retirement paperwork was processed swiftly. A senior officer from headquarters approached me, offering the best possible arrangements for me and the child. I declined. This life, I owed no one and would owe no one again. I left that city and severed every tie. A year later, I settled in a seaside town in the southern provinces and opened a small private clinic, psychological counseling and health management. Business was modest, but enough for me and my child. One day, I received a postcard from abroad. It was from Chloe. In the photo, she was standing in front of a university library, smiling brightly. She had begun formal gene therapy overseas, and her condition was now stable. On the back, Emi bowed a well sigh. She had written in neat handwriting, "Zoe, I'm sorry. And thank you. You taught me that a person must first live for themselves." I pinned the postcard to the wall. Turning toward the window, I watched the sunlight dance across the ocean's surface. In the cradle, my baby stirred, his long lashes trembling as he dreamed. I bent down and pressed a gentle kiss to his forehead. "Sweetheart," I whispered, "from now on, your mother will live only for you and for herself." My cousin Lena scored 600 on the college entrance exam but insisted on applying to a vocational school with her academically struggling boyfriend. Despite my strong objections, she didn't get her way, and ultimately attended a top university, graduating with an annual salary of $1 million. Meanwhile, her boyfriend, who got into the vocational school, was killed during a fight. Instead of being grateful, Lena blamed me for ruining her relationship, harboring resentment. In a fit of vengeance, she drugged me, leading to my poisoning and death. But fate gave me a second chance. I returned to the days before my cousin applied. And this time, I didn't try to stop her. Instead, I supported her. I wanted to see if their love was truly unbreakable. I opened my eyes, and the harsh white light made me instinctively raise my hand to shield my eyes. The familiar sound of arguing reached my ears, causing my heart to tighten sharply. "I don't care. I'm going to the same school as Jax." That sharp voice, Lena. My cousin. I lowered my hand, blinking to adjust to the light, and realized I was sitting in my uncle's living room. There were fruits and tea on the coffee table in front of me, and across from me, Lena was clutching the arm of a guy with bleached blonde hair, glaring defiantly at her parents. "This is 4 years ago?" I looked down at my hands. My skin was smooth and tight, with none of the subtle marks from long exposure to chemicals. My wristwatch showed the date June 25th, the third day after the college entrance exam results had been released. A crucial time for submitting college applications. "Lena, you scored 600. You could get into a top university. Yet you want to go to some technical school." With this, my aunt glanced at the blonde boy with disdain. "This thug? Are you out of your mind?" I secretly pinched my thigh, and the pain was real enough to shock me. This isn't a dream. I really have returned to 4 years ago. Memories flooded back. In my previous life, at Thirtito, I suddenly collapsed in the lab, and the hospital diagnosed me with chronic poisoning. On my deathbed, Lena stood over me, her eyes twisted with cruel satisfaction. "Cousin, you're finally going to die," she whispered softly in my ear, her voice venomous like a snake's hiss. "This is what you owe me. If you hadn't torn me apart from Jax, he wouldn't have died, and we'd be happy together." I finally understood that the coffee I had every day in the office had been laced with trace amounts of heavy metals by her. And now, hadn't fulfilled my session. Fate had given me another chance. Zena. You're a PhD. Your words have weight. Please talk to Lena. My aunt suddenly turned her gaze on me. All eyes were on me. In my past life, I had tried to reason with Lena for 3 straight days. Listing data and examples. Even contacting JIX's homeroom teacher to expose his history of fighting and cheating. In the end, Lena reluctantly agreed to attend a top university, later landing a high-paying job in a big company. Meanwhile, Jax was stabbed to death in his second year at vocational school due to gang violence. And what did I get in return for my good intentions? A cup of poison coffee. I lifted my teacup and took a small sip, hiding the cold smile at the corner of my lips. Lena was already an adult, capable of taking responsibility for her choices. I placed the cup down. My voice calm and steady. I think we should respect her decision. The living room went silent in an instant. Lena's eyes widened in disbelief, clearly not expecting her usually stern cousin to say this. Zena. How could you? My aunt's face turned pale with anger. Sis. Lena's eyes flickered with a hint of gratitude. Then she held JAX's arm even tighter. See, hadn't fulfilled my obsession. Even my cousin supports me. I quietly observed JAX's expression. The boy who had indirectly led to my death in the past life now had a slight gleam of smugness in his eyes. He squeezed Lena's hand, pretending to be deeply affectionate. Uncle, Aunt, I'll take good care of Lena. Such familiar lines. In my previous life, I had been deceived by this FA'd, thinking they were truly in a love stronger than gold. It wasn't until I later investigated JAX's background that I found out he was dating 3 other girls. And Lena was just the wealthiest one. Zena. What are you saying? My uncle also joined the fray. Veins popping on his forehead. I shrugged lightly. Matters of the heart are hard for outsiders to judge. If Lena believes this is the happiness she wants, as family, we should at least give her the chance to try. As I spoke, my gaze briefly met JAX's. A flicker of surprise flashed in his eyes, quickly replaced by wariness, as if he was evaluating whether I had some hidden agenda. I responded with a gentle smile, though inside, I was as cold as ice. In this life, I wouldn't be the meddlesome cousin anymore. Since Lena thought her love was so great that she could give up her future, that even with a vocational school diploma, she could still earn $1 million a year, and that I was the one who ruined her happiness. This time, I would wait and see. Anyway, my application is already filled out. I'll submit it to the school tomorrow. Lena raised her chin, striking a pose as if fighting for love. My uncle trembled with rage. If you dare go to that vocational school, don't call me your father. Fine, another low sigh. I won't. Lena shot back. As long as I had Jax. That's enough. Watching this farce unfold before me, I gracefully stood up. Uncle, and Aunt, I have work in the lab. I must take my leave now. I walked out of my uncle's house, the early summer sun warming my face. I took a deep breath, feeling the first true sense of reality since my rebirth. Lena, in this life, I will support your great love. I just hope you won't regret it. When my phone alarm went off, I snapped my eyes open, taking 3 seconds to confirm that I had truly been reborn. The sunlight filtered through the curtains, casting a golden line across the wooden floor. I reached for my phone on the nightstand. The date still showed June 26th, the last day to submit college applications. In my previous life, I had taken a leave of absence today to stop Lena from submitting her application. This time, I leisurely brushed my teeth, made a cup of coffee, and sat on the balcony, going over the latest data report sent from the lab. My phone on the coffee table kept vibrating from my aunt's repeated calls. I glanced at it, letting it ring until it automatically hung up. At 10 a.m., I changed into a simple white shirt and jeans and drove to a CAF in the city center. I had an important academic meeting and had scheduled an appointment with my advisor to discuss research directions. In my previous life, because of Lena, I had missed this meeting. causing a 2-month delay on my research project. In the CAF, my advisor, Lin, was already sitting by the window, waiting. When he saw me, he waved and smiled. "Zena. Over here. Sorry. Am I late?" I sat down across from him and ordered an Americano. "No, I was early." Lin pushed up his glasses and took out a stack of materials from his briefcase. "The nanometallurgy application concept you proposed last time has caught the Research Institute's interest. If we can prove its feasibility, we can apply for the National Keel AB Special Fund." I took the materials, and the familiar topic made my lips curl up slightly. In my previous life, it had taken our team a year and a half to make a breakthrough in this project. But now, I knew all the keynotes and potential obstacles. "I believe we can complete the preliminary validation in 3 months." I flipped through the materials, my tone confident. Lin raised an eyebrow. "So optimistic?" Usually. This kind of research. I recently had some new ideas." I interrupted him, pulled out the proposal I had prepared overnight from my bag. A revised experimental design that could bypass several technical bottlenecks in traditional methods. Lin took the document, his eyes widening with every word he read. When he looked up, his eyes sparkled with excitement. "Zena, if this plan works, you might just open up an entirely new research direction." The door of the CAF was suddenly slammed open, crashing against the wall with a loud bang. I turned to see Lena, breathless, standing at the entrance, scanning the room. She wore that familiar blue dress, her hair disheveled from running. "Sis. So you're here." She rushed up to me, her chest heaving with each breath. "I called you over a dozen times." I leisurely sipped my coffee. My phone was on silent. "Didn't hear it." "What's the matter?" Lena's eyes widened, almost in disbelief at my indifference. "Today's the last day to submit my volunteer application. The whole family's been looking for you." "Oh." I set my cup down. So? Her voice rose an octave. "You supported my decision yesterday. Mom and Dad locked me in the house today. Wouldn't let me go out. I had to climb out the window to escape. The other customers in the CAF are now eyeing us curiously." Lin awkwardly cleared his throat. "Zena, do you need to deal with family matters? We can discuss this another day." I handed the file back to Lin. "No need. We'll go to the Research Institute as planned. I'll explain the details on the way." Turning to Lena, I spoke calmly. "You're an adult now. It's your freedom to decide what you want to do. I have work. I'll be leaving." Lena grabbed my wrist desperately. "Sis. Aren't you going to help me?" I looked down at her hand, gripping me tightly. Her nails broken from climbing out the window, a trickle of blood seeping through. In my past life, it was this very hand that sent me on my journey to the underworld. "Help you with what?" I gently pulled my hand free. "Help you stand up to your parents? Or fill out your application form for you?" "Both." Lena's eyes brimmed with tears. "You said you'd respect my choices. Jax is waiting for me at school. And if I don't turn in the form today, then go ahead." I interrupted her, pulling out 200 yuan bills from my wallet and handing them to her. "Take a taxi. Don't keep Jax waiting." "Lena." Aunt's voice rang from the door. She stormed into the CAF, her face pale with fury, Uncle trailing behind, drenched in sweat. "How could you, Lena? Give me that application form." Lena leapt back like a frightened rabbit, clutching the folder tightly to her chest. "No. I want to go to the same school as Jax. This is my life." Whispers spread across the CAF. Len looked uncomfortable, unsure of what to do. I picked up my bag and the file, and quietly said to him, "Let's go." "Zena, are you really just walking away?" Aunt screamed, her voice shrill. "You're a PhD. For crying out loud. It's your duty to talk her out of this. Now you know a PhD is a good thing?" I smirked, remembering how Aunt used to mock me, saying, "PhD women are too old. Anyone who wants one is a fool." I paused and turned around, facing the drama playing out between this family of 3. Lena's eyes were pleading. Aunt was furious, and Uncle's gaze silently demanded that I do something. In my previous life, I had done plenty. I dug up dirt on Jax, contacted Lena's homeroom teacher, and even used my connections to arrange a visit to her dream university. In the end, she came to her senses, and I became the villain who ruined her true love. Lena, I spoke in a calm tone, as if discussing the weather. Are you sure this is the life you want? I'm sure, she replied without hesitation. I love Jax, and I'm willing to give up everything for him. I nodded. Then go ahead. Remember, this is your choice. Xena. Aunt screamed again. What do you mean by this? Respecting an adult's choice. I glanced at my watch. Sorry. We have an important meeting to attend. Lena, I wish you happiness. With that, I turned and left the CAF. Len hurrying to follow. Behind us, I could hear Lena's sobs and Aunt's hysterical cursing. As the glass door shut behind us, I saw Lena break free from her parents and run in the opposite direction and outwardly to meet Jax, waiting at the school gate. Family matters. Huh? Pretty complicated. Huh? Len asked as we walked toward the parking lot. I unlocked the car door. Everyone has to take responsibility for their own choices. Don't they? The meeting at the Research Institute went smoothly. My improved proposal was unanimously approved by the expert panel, and the project was launched ahead of schedule. After the meeting, I politely declined my colleague's invitation for dinner and returned to my apartment alone. When I opened the door, the uninvited guest in the living room raised an eyebrow. How did you get in? I put my bag down and asked Lena, who was sitting on the sofa. Downstairs. Aunt Shang recognized me. I told her you sent me to pick something up. Her eyes were red and swollen, clearly from crying, but she wore a triumphant smile. I handed in the application form. Jax and I both applied to the computer science program at FEIW Technical School. I walked into the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water. Congratulations, sis. She followed me, her voice suddenly softening. Thank you for helping me today. I know you were under a lot of pressure. I leaned against the counter, watching her performance. In my past life, at this moment, I would have been waiting for her at the school gate, while she hid in the restroom, ignoring my calls. My parents kicked me out. She bit her lip. They said if I insist on going to the tech school, I can't come back home. And then? I'm going to stay at JAX's house. Can you lend me some money? It's my first time visiting. I need to buy some things. I need to make a good impression on JAX's parents. I nearly laughed out loud. JAX's house? That 30 square meter rental? I'd been there when I investigated him last life. It was as filthy as a garbage dump, with half-naked posters of female stars plastered on the walls. Do whatever you want. I put down the water cup and handed her 200 yuan. On my way to the laboratory, my phone rang. It was Uncle calling. I pressed the answer button and switched to speakerphone. Xena, you've really disappointed me. Uncle's voice echoed in the car. As Lena's cousin, not only did you not stop her, you even encouraged her to be with that good-for-nothing? I stared at the red light ahead. You too, as her parents can't control her. Are you sure I can? Besides, I said I respect her choice. That's the same as encouraging her. He was shouting now. If you insist on opposing this. And then? I interrupted coldly. Then she'll hate me for the rest of her life. Thinking I destroyed her true love? There was a brief silence on the other end of the line. At least she'll have a bright future. Uncle's voice lowered. The green light turned on. And I pressed the gas pedal. Now she'll have a bright future. But it's the one she's chosen for herself. Goodbye, Uncle. I ended the call and rolled down the car window, letting the night breeze disperse the stifling heat in the car. In my past life, I bore the moral shackles of wanting what was best for you, only to end up with a cup of poison coffee. This time, I chose to stand aside, yet I'm being accused of being irresponsible. How ironic. The lab was brightly lit, with several graduate students still working late. When they saw me walk in, they greeted me with surprise. Xena? You're here so late? I have an experiment to validate. I swiped my card to enter the core lab area and changed into a white lab coat. The familiar instruments, The familiar environment, this is my world. Here, every variable is controlled. Every result has a clear cause and effect. Unlike the human heart, no matter how precisely calculated, it will always be full of surprises. My phone screen lit up with a message from Lena. Sis, Jack said he's taking me to meet his brothers tomorrow. He wants to treat me to a big meal to celebrate. Thanks for supporting me today. I knew you were different from those old-fashioned people. I didn't reply and tossed my phone into my bag. Walking out of the lab building, the eastern sky was starting to turn light. A new day was about to begin. While Lena's life was steadily heading toward the abyss I had foreseen. This time, I wouldn't reach out to pull her back. A week later, the living room of my uncle's house was once again crowded. This time, even my grandparents were present. And the atmosphere was so tense it could be cut with a knife. I sat on a single armchair in the corner, leisurely peeling an orange, the fresh scent of citrus filling the air. Lena was kneeling in the center of the room, her face streaked with tears, but her eyes remained defiant. Jax had been kept outside and was probably wandering downstairs. Tomorrow is the last day to make changes to your college application, my uncle said, slamming his hand on the coffee table, causing the teacups to clink. You have to change it today. I won't. Lena's voice was hoarse. I've made up my mind. Made up your mind? My aunt sneered. You're just an 18-year-old girl. What do you know about making decisions? What kind of spell has that little fug put on you? I popped a slice of orange into my mouth, its sweet and sour taste lingering. In my past life, I would have stepped in as the mediator, presenting data and cases to prove the importance of attending university. But now, I was just a quiet observer. Lena, Grandpa said heavily, leaning on his cane. You're ruining your future. Lena looked up at me, her eyes pleading. I swallowed the orange, offering a faint smile. Actually, vocational schools aren't that bad, I said, my voice low but clear enough to make everyone turn toward me. Right now, there's a national shortage of skilled workers, and vocational school graduates have a higher employment rate than university graduates. The room fell silent. My aunt's mouth hung open, as if an egg could fit inside. Zena, what are you talking about? Grandma asked, frowning. I straightened up, putting on a serious academic demeanor. According to the latest data from the Ministry of Education, the employment rate for vocational school graduates has been above 90 for 5 consecutive years. Some popular fields, such as computer applications, even offer starting salaries higher than regular college graduates. These numbers were true, but I deliberately ignored the difference between employment quality and career development potential. Lena's eyes brightened, as though she had grabbed onto a lifeline. Did you hear that? Even my cousin says so. Also, I added, if Lena and Jax are truly so in love, forcing them apart might just create a rebellious reaction. It might be better to let them attend vocational school together. Once their passion fades, they'll naturally drift apart. This was a carefully crafted linguistic trap, using temporary compromise as bait. I was really pushing Lena toward making an irreversible choice. Sure enough, Lena shook her head excitedly. We won't break up. We're true love. True love is priceless. I sighed softly and peeled another segment of the orange. Since Lena is so determined, I think we should respect her choice. After all, her life is her own. Zena. My uncle suddenly stood up, glaring at me. Are you here just to make trouble? I met his furious gaze calmly. I'm just providing objective information. You don't have to take my word for it. Suddenly, Lena rushed over and hugged my legs. Sis. Thank you for understanding me. I looked down at her tear-streaked face and thought back to the cold smile she had given me when she stood by my hospital bed in my past life. She had cried then too, but it was tears of triumph. Get up. I gently pushed her away. Some things you'll never see clearly until you've experienced them yourself. Grandpa sighed deeply. Fine. Fine. She's grown up. We can't control her anymore. The meeting ended with the Zena family's reluctant compromise. As we were leaving, Lena insisted on escorting me downstairs. In the elevator, she bounced around excitedly. Sis. I knew you would stand by me. Jax was right, you're a modern woman who knows how to respect love. Jax talks about me often? I raised an eyebrow. Yeah. Lena beamed with admiration. He says you're different from other bookworms. That you can think independently. He also said that once I graduate from vocational school, we'll open a computer repair shop and I'll be my own boss. It's way better than working for someone else. I couldn't help but sneer internally. Jax's business plan was exactly the same as in my past life, and his words hadn't even changed. The so-called computer repair shop was nothing but a mirage. A fleeting fantasy. Very ambitious, I said with a nod of approval. By the way, I'll be waiting for you at the school gate at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Don't be late. The next day, the sun was bright, and I arrived half an hour early at Lena's high school. The school gate was already crowded with students and parents. The air filled with the vibrant energy of youth. I leaned against my car, reviewing the experimental data on my phone. Sis. Lena came running over, with Jax trailing behind her. He was wearing a tight black t-shirt, an oversized metal chain around his neck, his shoulders swaying with every step, looking every bit like a peacock strutting its stuff. Zena. Hi, Jax grinned, revealing his yellowed teeth. Lena said you fully support us. You're so open-minded. I put my phone away and nodded briefly. Morning. The line at the academic office was long. Most students there to confirm their applications. Lena and Jax were at the front, and I stood not far behind them. As the line moved slowly, a middle-aged woman with glasses hurried over. Lena. She called out to my cousin. Are you really sure about this? It was Lena's homeroom teacher, Lene. In my past life, I had contacted her to try to convince Lena otherwise. When Lene saw me, her eyes lit up. Azina. You came at the right time. Please. Talk some sense into your sister. I feigned a helpless gesture. Lene let out a low sigh. I respect Lena's decision. Lene looked at me in disbelief. But her grades are good enough for a top university. That Jax. She lowered her voice. He's been given to strikes for fighting this past semester and his grades are at the bottom of the class. I looked at Lena, who was nervously watching us, as if she feared I might say something damaging. Young people have their own ideas. I raised my voice to ensure Lena could hear. Vocational schools are legitimate education. And as long as you're willing to work hard, you can make a name for yourself anywhere. Lena visibly relaxed and cast me a grateful look. Lene shook her head in disappointment and walked away. An hour later, Lena and Jax emerged from the academic office, holding their confirmation forms with triumphant smiles on their faces. It's done. Lena cheered. Jax and I are both enrolled in the Computer Applications Program and FEIU Vocational School. Jax shook the confirmation form proudly. Zena. When we open our shop, you can come by for free service whenever your computer has a problem. Congratulations. I said flatly. I have to go. Take care. Sis. Lena called out to me. Tonight, Jax and his buddies are throwing a celebration. You should come too. It's at Golden Years KTV. Golden Years Jax's usual haunt. The place where he met his untimely death in the previous life during a brawl. I shook my head. I still have work at the lab. Oh. Lena sounded disappointed, but her excitement returned quickly. Well, I'll invite you another day. On my way back to the lab, I detoured through the tech park in the east of the city. My favorite CAF from my past life was still in the same spot, and the owner hadn't changed either. I ordered a latte and sat by the window. Halfway through my coffee, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Lynn. Zena, Eddingfeldmayan. Your experimental plan has been unanimously approved by the academic committee. You can start the first round of experiments next Monday. Amazing. I sent a smiling face emoji in response. Outside, the sunlight was just right, and the leaves swayed gently in the breeze. At that moment, Lena was probably at KTV, clinking glasses with Jax and his group of friends, dreaming of a bright future ahead. The opening ceremony of FEIU Technical School started 2 weeks earlier than regular universities. The August sun was still scorching, and Lena stood at the school gate with her suitcase. beads of sweat dripping down her forehead. She squinted her eyes as she took in the sight of the campus A faded school sign, a weathered wall, and a security guard lazily perched with one leg over the other, playing on his phone, completely ignoring the new students checking in. This is the good environment you were talking about? Lena tugged at Jax's sleeve, her voice trembling. Jax chewed gum nonchalantly and kicked a small stone away. Well, it's a school. As long as we can sleep and play games. Who cares about how nice it is? Come on. Let's go. It's too hot. Lena bit her lip and dragged her suitcase along, following him. The campus was filled with students wearing cheap t-shirts and sporting hair in every color. A few guys squatted under the trees smoking, and they whistled when they saw her. The teaching buildings had peeling walls, and thick dust coated the windows. The registration desk had a long line, and the staff were impatiently yelling at everyone. When it was Lena's turn, a middle-aged man with greasy skin didn't even look up. Name? Major? Lena. Computer applications. Room 308. Building 6. Turn right at the payment counter. He tossed her a crumpled form. Next. Lena gripped the form, her palms sweating. Just a month ago, she had given up a spot at a 985 university. She had toured that campus before: red bricks, green roofs, and a library as grand as a palace. Senior students, in neat uniforms, sat on the grass discussing academic topics she didn't understand. What are you zoning out for? Jax pushed her from behind. Hurry up and pay. I've got a ranked match to play. While waiting in line at the payment counter, Lena secretly sent me a message. Sis, I've arrived at the school. It's not as great as I imagined. The message was sent, but there was no reply. The dorm was an 8-person room with iron-framed beds, the paint peeling off, and a bathroom that reeked. 5 of Lena's roommates were young adults who had dropped out of school to work before returning to finish their studies. They smoked while discussing which KDV paid the most, and looked down on Lena's student-like demeanor. Wow. The princess brought so many books. One girl with purple hair kicked Lena's suitcase. This isn't a real school for you to study. You know. Lena forced a smile and pushed the suitcase under the bed. She had deliberately brought a few introductory programming books, hoping to get a head start. The first class of the semester was basic computer science. Lena arrived early and chose a seat in the front row. The teacher arrived 20 minutes late and proceeded to give a lecture from a 5-year-old PowerPoint presentation, still covering Windows XP. Lena raised her hand to ask, Teacher, companies are using Win 10 and even Win 11 now. Why are we learning this? The textbook is like this. What can I do? The teacher impatiently interrupted. The exam will be based on this. Whether you like it or not. The class burst into laughter. A few boys in the back were openly playing mobile games, and the teacher ignored them. Lena looked around and saw that fewer than 5 people were paying attention. At lunch in the cafeteria, Lena finally saw Jax. He appeared groggy, the smell of cigarettes and alcohol lingering on him. Where were you last night? We were supposed to have dinner together, Lena asked softly. Jax yawned. Stayed up playing games with my buddies until dawn. Overslept. He glanced at the green beans and tofu on Lena's tray. Is this all you're eating? Let's go. I'll take you somewhere nice. At a small restaurant outside the campus, Jax ordered 2 bottles of beer. Lena hesitated. But we have class this afternoon. Theft. Who cares about that stupid class? Jax poured himself a drink carelessly. My cousin said it's just a diploma mill. The last 3 months. The teachers will give you the answers. You're guaranteed to pass. Lena stirred the noodles in her bowl, feeling a heaviness in her stomach. She remembered back in high school when she and her classmates would discuss the clubs to join, the certificates to earn, and the scholarships to fight for. Those dreams seemed so laughable now. By the way, can you lend me 500 yuan? Jax suddenly asked. My gaming equipment subscription expired. Again? Lena's eyes widened. I just gave you 300 2 days ago. Why are you being so stingy? Jax's face darkened. If I weren't accompanying you to this crappy school, I'd be out working and earning money already. Lena's eyes burned as she silently took out her phone to transfer the money. She remembered what her parents had said. When that good-for-nothing man has cheated all your money, don't come crying back. In the afternoon, during the practical class, having so silt maid se, Lena was assigned to work with Jax. The teacher demonstrated how to assemble and disassemble a computer, then let the students practice. Jax paid no attention. Instead, he took out his phone and filmed Lena bending down, sending the video to his friends to show off. "What are you doing?" Lena turned around and saw what he was doing, her face flushing red with anger. "Just a joke. Don't take it so seriously." Jax flashed a mischievous grin. "Hey, having fulfilled my obsession. The student union is recruiting tonight. So many pretty senior girls. Want to come check it out?" Lena was about to refuse, but then remembered that in the dorm, she would only face those tough girls. She nodded reluctantly. The recruitment event was held on the sports field, with each club setting up simple booths. As soon as Jax entered, he made a beeline for the dance club, his eyes glued to the senior girls in short skirts. "Would you be interested in joining?" A heavily made-up girl from the dance club winked at Jax. "We have special activities every Friday night." Lena watched as Jax exchanged WeChat IDs with the girl, a stone weighing down her heart. She walked over to the booth of the reading club, where the booth keeper was a shy, thin boy wearing glasses. "Would you like to join the reading club?" the boy asked nervously. "We share one book every week. What do I need to do to join?" Lena forced a smile. "Just fill out this form." The boy handed her a form. "You're the first one to ask." As Lena filled out the form, Jax's loud laughter echoed behind her. She turned around to see him, arms around a senior from the dance club, practicing dance steps with his hands positioned far too low. The senior giggled and slapped his chest, but didn't actually push him away. The words on the form blurred before Lena's eyes. She hurriedly filled in the remaining fields, fleeing the recruitment meeting like a person escaping. At the family gathering in early September, Lena didn't show up. My aunt couldn't stop complaining at the dinner table. "That girl has completely been ruined by that little thug." I secretly went to her school last week, and guess what I saw? In broad daylight, playing games with a bunch of boys and girls in an internet cafe. When I called her, she was embarrassed that I was there. "That's what vocational schools are like now," my aunt said, sneering. "My colleague's son graduated from one last year, and now he's working at a supermarket moving goods, earning just $2,800 a month." Everyone's eyes turned toward me, who had been quietly eating. "Zena," Grandma suddenly spoke up. "If you had insisted back then, Lena wouldn't have." I set down my chopsticks and wiped my mouth. "Grandma, don't make it sound like I was so adamant. Why would she listen to me?" "But you're a PhD," Aunt shouted, slamming the table. "She would definitely listen to you." "I've said it before," I replied calmly, meeting her gaze. I told her that vocational schools have a good employment rate and that computer science is a promising field. These are facts. The table fell silent. My uncle's face dark and with anger. "Zena, you're just jealous of Lena. You're afraid she'll surpass you in the future." I smiled faintly and took a sip of tea. At that moment, a news segment on the TV caught everyone's attention. "Breaking news, Zena, a young scientist at the City Materials Science Research Institute, and her team have made groundbreaking progress in nanomaterials. This technology is expected to revolutionize." Everyone's head snapped toward the screen, where I was seen wearing a white lab coat and working in the lab. "Oh my goodness. It's Zena," Grandma exclaimed, delighted. The atmosphere at the table shifted instantly. Relatives began to praise my achievements, asking about the benefits at the research institute and whether I'd been interviewed on TV. Aunt's face turned ashen, and she suddenly stood up, leaving the table. I glanced at my phone. Lena had just updated her social media. In the photo, she wore heavy makeup and a revealing spaghetti strap dress, raising a glass with Jax and his friends in a Kate private room. The caption read, "True love is invincible." I gave a soft like. In mid-October, Lena suddenly called me, her voice choked with tears. "Sis, can I meet you?" We met at a CAF near the school. After a month, Lena looked much more haggard. Dark circles under her eyes. Her nails chipped and peeling. She ordered the cheapest lemonade and stirred the straw restlessly. Jax. He seems to like someone else now, she said suddenly. Her voice rough. That senior from the dance club. I saw them. In the equipment room. Hugging each other. I showed no surprise. And then? I had a fight with him. He said I'm too controlling. Lena's tears fell into her glass. He said if it wasn't for me forcing him to go to the same school, he would have gone to work and made big money by now. He said it's all my fault. So, you regret it? I looked her directly in the eyes. Lena froze for a moment. Then shook her head vigorously. No. I just don't know what to do. I've given up so much for him. Like what? A top university. My parents. My future. Her voice suddenly rose, drawing the attention of people around us. I gave him everything. How could he do this to me? I slowly stirred my coffee. Have you ever thought that real love doesn't require you to give up all these things? Lena froze. Tears still hanging on her cheeks. In that moment, a flicker of clarity passed through her eyes. As if she could finally see the edge of the cliff. But soon, without a low sigh, that light faded. No. Jax just made a mistake. She wiped her tears and straightened her back. He said that once we graduate and open the computer shop, he'll marry me. He just needs time to mature. I set down my coffee cup, not saying anything more. Suddenly, having fulfilled la obsessure, Lena's phone rang. She glanced at the screen, and a hopeful expression appeared on her face. It's Jax. She picked up the phone, and a harsh male voice came through. Even through the speaker. Where the hell have you been? My meal card is out of money. Hurry and send me 200. I'm with my cousin. I don't give a damn who you're with. If I don't get the money within 5 minutes, we're done. The phone hung up. Lena fumbled with her phone's banking app, but her balance showed insufficient funds. She nervously looked at me. Sis, can you lend me some money? I'll pay you back next month when I get my allowance. I transferred 200 to her. Last time. Lena received the money and sighed in relief after quickly transferring it. Her phone's wallpaper was a picture of her and Jax, where she was smiling brightly, while Jax's gaze was directed off to somewhere beyond the camera. Thank you, sis. I knew you were the best. Lena jumped up and suddenly remembered something. Oh, and how are mom and dad? You can call them yourself. Her expression darkened. They won't answer. Last time my mom came to school, she said she wished she'd never had me. I grabbed my bag, preparing to leave. The path you chose, Lena, is yours to walk. I walked out of the CAF. The autumn wind brushing past, stirring the fallen leaves. Lena sat by the window, holding her phone, smiling foolishly. She had only taken one sip of her lemonade, and the condensation on the cup kept sliding down the sides like tears that no one cared about. I turned and walked toward the parking lot. My phone vibrated. A new email from the Research Institute. My paper on nanomaterials has been accepted by Nature magazine and will be published next month. The cold December wind swept across the vocational school's sports field, stirring up dust. Lena huddled in her thin coat, standing at the back alley of the teaching building, stomping her feet to keep warm. Her lips were purple from the cold, but she tightly clutched a pack of cigarettes. Why are you so slow? Jax walked out from the alley, flanked by 2 boys with bleached hair. He snatched the pack of cigarettes from her, expertly opened it, and demanded, "Where's the money?" Lena pulled out her phone and whispered, "I only have 500 left for this month's living expenses." 500? Are you trying to beg for it? Jax shoved her roughly, and Lena stumbled into the wall. If Lee's bill isn't paid, my fingers will be gone. I really don't have any money left. Lena's voice trembled. The fine I paid for you last time was already. Jax suddenly softened, pulled her into his arms, and spoke in a sweet voice. Baby. Last time. After graduation. When I open the shop, I'll pay you back double. He leaned closer to her ear. Come to my dorm tonight. and I'll make it up to you. Lena's ears turned red. And she hesitated before nodding. She opened her mobile banking app and transferred the last 500 to Jax. Good girl. Jax spat at her face, then nodded to his two friends. Clean up. I'll see you later. The three of them burst into laughter as they walked away. Lena stood there, watching Jax's back until he turned the corner. Then slowly walked back to the teaching building. Her phone's wallpaper was still the same photo of her and Jax, though now it had a few cracks running through it. In the classroom, programming class was underway. The teacher didn't even raise his head when Lena walked in late, having missed too many classes this semester for him to care anymore. Lena quietly slipped into a seat at the back. The girl next to her was applying lipstick in front of a mirror. Going to serve your Jax again? The girl sneered. I heard you took Tessa from the dance club to a hotel last night? Lena snapped her head up. What nonsense are you talking about? The whole school knows. You're the only one pretending to be clueless. The girl scoffed. Look. She even posted the pictures on her moments. On the phone screen, Tessa was cuddled up with Jax, and the background clearly showed a hotel bed. The caption read, Met my soulmate. Lena's finger hovered above the screen, trembling, too scared to open the full picture. She suddenly stood up and rushed out of the classroom, running all the way to the furthest stall in the girls' bathroom, where she finally allowed her tears to fall. She took out her phone, wanting to call Xena, but stopped before dialing. Her cousin's words from their last meeting. The path you choose is yours. Felt like a thorn, constantly pricking at her heart. In the end, she opened her moments and posted a status visible only to herself. What should I do? She skipped the afternoon practical class and curled up on her dorm bed, covering her head with the blanket. Her roommates loudly discussed where to go for fun that evening, completely uninterested in her unusual behavior. Hey, Lena. Her purple-haired roommate suddenly yanked the blanket off her. Your boyfriend is causing trouble downstairs. Lena jumped up and ran to the window. A crowd had gathered in the open space downstairs, with Jax and a tall guy wrestling in the middle. Jax was clearly losing, with blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. Tessa's my girl. You dare touch her again. Jax's shouting was faintly heard. Lena's vision blurred. She stumbled down the stairs and squeezed into the crowd just as she saw Jax pick up a brick from the ground. Stop, she screamed, rushing to grab Jax's arm. You'll get expelled. Get off me. Jax shoved her away, and the brick flew out of his hand, narrowly missing the tall guy's ear. The sound of sirens grew louder. By the time the security guards and police arrived, Jax had broken free from Lena's grasp and was swinging an iron rod at the other guy. The police quickly subdued him, handcuffing him and shoving him into the police car. Jax. Lena cried out, chasing after the car but was blocked by a police officer. With trembling hands, Lena called her uncle, but the phone rang several times without answer. She tried calling her aunt, but the call was immediately hung up. In the end, she sat helplessly on the ground, crying. The wind in early March still carried a chill as I stood in front of a cosmetics counter at the mall, testing a new perfume. The top note was citrus, followed by jasmine in the heart, and cedarwood as the base, a cold, distant scent, just like the person I had become. Sis? The trembling voice made me turn around. Lena stood 2 meters away, holding a bag from a cheap clothing store, her eyes wide open. It had been 6 months since we last saw each other. She had lost so much weight, and her collarbones jutted out, as if they might pierce through her skin. Dark circles under her eyes were thick, as though she had been beaten. She wore a too short skirt, with a few bruises visible on her legs. I nodded slightly and turned back to the perfume. But Lena, clutching onto me like I was her last hope, rushed over. Sis. It's really you. What are you doing here? This is great. I actually needed to find you for something. Her perfume was overwhelmingly strong, cheap and cloying, masking the faint scent of smoke and alcohol. The sales assistant shot an odd look at her, and I signaled her to wrap up the perfume, then turned to Lena. What is it? Can you lend me some money? Lena twisted her fingers nervously, her voice growing softer. Jax. Our rent's due. I handed my credit card to the sales assistant and replied calmly. I thought you were living on campus? Lena's lips twitched. We were expelled last semester. Jax got detained for 15 days after the fight. And I missed too many classes. So we rented a place near the school. She suddenly became animated. But Jax has been having trouble finding a job. And the landlord's been pressuring us. Sis, having so mad sesha. It's just 2-0. He'll pay you back next month when he gets his salary. The sales assistant returned my credit card and the neatly packaged bag. I took them and turned toward the elevator. Lena jogged to keep up, her shoes too big, clacking loudly on the floor. Sis. Please. She grabbed my arm at the elevator entrance. Jack said that if we don't pay this week, he'll. Then what? I pressed the down button. Lena's tears suddenly burst forth. He'll leave me. The elevator doors opened. And I stepped inside, with Lena squeezing in behind me. In the confined space, cutting fulfilled my sigh. Her sobs were especially piercing. Several customers frowned and avoided eye contact, pretending not to see. Why not go to your parents? I asked. They won't answer my calls. Lena wiped her face with her sleeve. Mascara smudging into dark streaks. Last time I went home, my dad said he didn't have a daughter like me. The elevator reached the first floor. I stepped out toward the parking lot. With Lena trailing behind like an abandoned puppy. Sis. I know I was wrong. Her voice broke. I understand now. Jax. Maybe he doesn't love me as much. But I have nothing left. The dim parking lot lights illuminated the lines on her haggard face. She was only 19, but looked like she was already 30. I stopped in front of the car and turned to look at her. Do you know where Jax is now? She froze. He said he was going for an interview. I pulled out my phone, opened a video, and handed it to her. The video showed Jax with two heavily made-up girls in a KDD room, drinking. One of his hands was inside the collar of one of the girls. The video was taken 20 minutes ago, with the location showing golden years. Lena's hand trembled violently as the phone fell to the ground, cracking the screen. He said he was going for a manager interview. She mumbled. Then suddenly squatted down and held her head. No. This must be an old video. I picked up the phone and opened the car door. Every adult must take responsibility for their choices. Is that all you can say? Lena suddenly screamed, attracting curious glances from passersby. You could help me. You knew this would happen. You're just standing by. Letting it happen. Her voice echoed through the parking lot, filled with hysterical despair. A few pedestrians stopped and stared. I sat in the driver's seat and fastened my seatbelt. Yes, having fulfilled my obsession. I let it happen. But it's nothing compared to what you did to me back then. Lena stood frozen. Her face filled with confusion. Of course. She couldn't understand this version of her hadn't poisoned me yet. But the pain of being betrayed by the one person I trusted most. I would make her feel it. Little by little. The car window slowly rolled up, cutting off her cries. In the rearview mirror, I saw her kneeling on the ground, like a broken doll. In early April, my aunt suddenly appeared at the door of my research institute. She had aged considerably. Her hair now mostly gray, clutching an eco-friendly bag tightly in her hands. Zena. She spoke in a voice that was no longer sharp but almost pleading. Can we talk? At the tea restaurant across from the institute. My aunt ordered 2 cups of milk tea, but didn't touch either. With trembling hands, she pulled out a stack of papers from the Ecobac hospital examination reports. Lena. She's pregnant. I raised an eyebrow. Not surprised. That bastard. Aunt slammed the table, drawing the attention of everyone around her. After finding out Lena was pregnant, he actually said she should abort it. And he even accused Lena of tricking him. So? Zena. Aunt grabbed my hand. Her palm cold and damp. You must have connections. Right? Help Lena find a good job. This child can't be ruined like this. I gently pulled my hand away. Aunt. Lena is already an adult. She can choose to go home, to have an abortion, or to keep the child. It's her freedom. Aunt's face twisted in rage. Zena, do you have any conscience left? If you hadn't stopped her back then. You're wrong, you're wrong. I interrupted her. I did stop her. She couldn't understand the meaning behind my words and just stared at me in confusion. So what happened? I continued. She hates me to the core. Believes I destroyed her love. So, I respect her choice. What's wrong with that? Aunt's lips trembled, but she couldn't find the words to argue back. Finally, she broke down, burying her face in her arms, sobbing uncontrollably. Mylena, why are you so foolish? I left 100 yuan under my teacup and quietly left. Outside, the spring sun shone brightly. The street trees sprouting new, tender green leaves. Everything was full of hope except for Lena's life. In mid-May, Hazada la Sai. I ran into Lena again at the mall. This time, she was with Jax. And they were having a heated argument. I stood by the cosmetics counter, watching them from a distance. Lena's belly had already begun to show, her loose t-shirt no longer concealing the bump. Jax had dyed his hair a shocking shade of red and was wearing ripped jeans. Pointing his finger at her and yelling. I told you. I don't have any money. You figure it out yourself. The doctor said I need money for nutrition. Lena clutched at his shirt, her voice quivering. And the rent for next month. I don't give a damn. Jax shoved her away. Who told you to get pregnant? It might not even be my kid. It could be Lonnie's. Lena staggered backward and slammed into the wall, holding her stomach as she slowly slid down to the floor. Passers-by glanced over but no one approached. Jax grumbled and walked away, not noticing me standing not far off. I walked up to Lena and handed her a tissue. When she looked up and saw me, her tears flowed even more freely. He was just in a bad mood, she said, stubbornly trying to defend Jax. Once he gets a job, things will be better. I didn't expose her self-deception. Simply asking, how many months along are you? 4 months. She gently caressed her belly. The doctor said, it's very healthy. Are you planning to keep the baby? For a moment, a glimmer of light flickered in Lena's eyes. Jax said, after the baby is born, he'll take responsibility. We can open a small shop. Such a familiar fantasy. In my past life, even after Jax had been dead for years, Lena still clung to this. What a fantasy. Eventually directing all her bitterness at me. I wish you happiness. I turned to leave. Sis. Lena called out behind me. If it were you, what would you do? I didn't turn around. I'm not you. When I stepped out of the mall, the sunlight was blinding. My phone vibrated with a push notification from an academic news outlet. My team's research on nanomaterials has been published in Science, hailed as a revolutionary breakthrough in materials science. Meanwhile, Lena was struggling to rise from the ground. Picking up the scattered shopping bags inside was nothing but a pack of cheap crackers. At the entrance to Golden Years KDV, a police cordon had been set up, and flashing sirens lit up the night sky. I stood at the edge of the crowd, watching as a stretcher was carried out. It was covered with a white sheet, but beneath it, a human shape was faintly visible. The sheet hadn't been secured tightly, and a tuft of red-dyed hair was exposed. Jax. The police were questioning witnesses, and I overheard snippets of conversation. All for a bottle of liquor. That kid made the first move. The knife was stabbed from behind. The crowd suddenly stirred, and a frail figure broke through the police line, rushing toward the stretcher. Jax. Jax. Lena's scream tore through the night. No. He just called me. The police stopped her, and she struggled violently, her loose t-shirt lifting to reveal the slight bulge of her stomach. The coroner said something, and suddenly, she collapsed, letting out a sound that wasn't human. Wailing on the ground, I didn't move forward. I turned and walked toward the parking lot. My phone buzzed with an email from the Research Institute. My nanomaterials project has won the International Young Scientist Award, and I will be heading to Sweden next week to receive the honor. The news of Jax's death spread faster than I imagined. The next morning, Aunt called me, her voice distorted with twisted joy. Zena. Did you hear? That thug is dead. Now Lena can start over. I put the phone on speaker and set it down on the bathroom sink while I finished brushing my teeth. Zena? Are you listening? And raised her voice. Now's the perfect time. Lena's only 4 months pregnant. She can still have an abortion. You know so many doctors. Hurry up and arrange it. I finished rinsing my mouth and picked up the phone. What did Lena say? That girl's gone mad. She insists on going to the funeral. Aunt's voice dripped with disgust. She wants to leave something for Jax. Insane. Completely insane. Then let her be. I hung up. In my previous life, Lena had also attended Jix's funeral as a victim. She had cried unconscious in front of his grave, mumbling over and over, "If only we had gone to vocational school together." How ironic this time. They did go to vocational school together. But the ending was just as tragic. Outside, the sun was bright, perfect for a walk. I changed into my workout clothes and jogged along the riverside park. The 5 kilometers felt refreshing. My back soaked with sweat. Invigorating and free. Jix's funeral was held at a small mortuary on the outskirts of town. A mourning hall was sparsely decorated, with a few enlarged photos of Jax posing in various social stances hung on the walls. Jix's parents, a middle-aged couple with angry, swollen faces, stared at Lena as she entered, and his mother immediately glared at her, pointing and shouting, "It's this bad luck star. If it weren't for her clinging to my son, Jax wouldn't have gone to that damned vocational school. He wouldn't have met those scumbags." Lena flinched, but didn't turn around. She simply wrapped her arms tighter around her stomach. "Shut the hell up," Uncle yelled. "It was your son who led my daughter astray." The mourning hall erupted into chaos. Jax and his rowdy friends surrounded my uncle, pushing him around. In the midst of the confusion, someone shoved Lena, and she stumbled, crashing into the table where the urn was placed, her abdomen hitting the edge with a heavy thud. "Ah!" she cried out in pain, collapsing to the ground. "Lena!" My uncle rushed to her, but his hands were covered in blood. Lena's light-colored pants quickly soaked up the blood, and she curled up on the floor, groaning in agony. The Jax family stood by, coldly watching, and some even muttered that she deserved it. The ambulance arrived quickly. By the time the medical staff carried Lena away, she had lost so much blood that she was drifting in and out of consciousness, mumbling, "My baby. My baby." In the hospital corridor, my uncle paced back and forth like a caged animal. The operating room doors opened, and the doctor stepped out, removing his mask. "We couldn't save the baby. The adult is fine, but she needs rest." My uncle collapsed onto a bench, covering his face as he wept. 3 days later, I went to pick Lena up from the hospital. My uncle had finished the paperwork and left, leaving me to wait for the medication. Lena was horrificously thin, her eye sockets sunken, and she needed to lean on the wall to walk. "Sis." Her voice was hoarse. "My baby is gone." I didn't respond, just helped her into the car. On the way back, she kept staring out of the window before suddenly saying, "It was Jax's mom who pushed me. I hate her." Lena's voice was soft but full of a bitter coldness. "I hate all of them." I glanced at her, seeing the hatred flickering in her eyes. It was a look I knew all too well, just like the one she had when she poisoned me in my past life. "What are you planning to do now?" I asked. Lena was silent for a long time before finally answering. "I want to start over. Find a job. Survive." 2 weeks later, I saw a news story on TV. Early this morning, a fire broke out at the Golden Years KTV. Fortunately, heading to Velvet Rebirth. It was discovered in time and no casualties occurred. Surveillance footage shows the suspect to be a young woman. The screen switched to a blurry surveillance photo, but the thin figure and the distinctive way she walked were enough for me to instantly recognize it as Lena. I turned off the TV and began packing my bags for Sweden. On the podium, the spotlight shone on me, and the host awkwardly pronounced my name in broken Chinese. The audience erupted into applause. I smiled and raised my trophy. But in my mind, I wondered where Lena was now. After returning to the country, I hosted a small celebratory dinner, inviting colleagues from the Research Institute and a few academic partners. The banquet was held in a five-star hotel's grand hall, and the champagne bar glittered. My daughter's in detention right now. It's all because of her. He turned to the crowd, loudly accusing me. This so-called scientist watched as my daughter threw away a bright future to follow some thug to vocational school. Now that thug is dead, and my daughter couldn't take it. So she set the place on fire. And she doesn't even care. Guests whispered among themselves, casting awkward glances at me. I put down my champagne glass and calmly waited for my uncle to finish. Are you done? I adjusted the collar of my suit. First of all, Lena is 23 now. She is fully responsible for her own actions. Second, setting a fire is illegal, and she must face the consequences. And finally, I locked eyes with my uncle. It's your education that taught her to value love above all else. It's your indulgence that made her incapable of understanding responsibility or gratitude. You. My aunt trembled with anger. If only you hadn't stopped her back then. Don't advise others unless you've walked in their shoes. I interrupted. How do you know I didn't try to stop her? The result? She hates me to the core, thinking I ruined her true love. You are now blaming me for everything because you refused to admit your own failure as parents. The banquet hall was silent. My uncle's face turned from red to white, and then to an ashen shade. He raised his hand as if to strike me, but security stepped in to stop him. Please leave, the hotel manager said, stepping forward. Otherwise, we will have to call the police. Before leaving, my aunt shot me a venomous glare. Lena, you'll pay for this. I smiled and raised my champagne glass. Safe travels. The party continued, but the atmosphere had shifted. Colleagues tactfully avoided mentioning the incident, though the congratulations now seemed forced. I left early and drove to the riverbank. The river was ink black in the night, reflecting the lights from both banks. I leaned against the railing, remembering what Lena had said to me at my hospital bed in my past life. You ruined my love. I ruined your life. It's fair. Now, her love had destroyed her, while my life was as brilliant as the stars. My phone rang. It was the detention center's number. I pressed the answer button, and Lena's crying voice came through. Sis, I regret it. I really regret it. She sobbed. If I hadn't met Jax. The river breeze brushed against my face, carrying the chill of early autumn. Lena, I said one last time. Everyone must take responsibility for their choices. I hung up the phone and walked back to the parking lot. The streetlight stretched my shadow long, like a road with no end. The neon lights of the Nightingale nightclub were especially glaring on this rainy night. The bird-shaped pattern on the sign was missing a corner, and it twitched erratically as it flickered. I sat in the CAF across the street, watching the entrance of the nightclub through the rain-soaked curtain. 3 months ago, Lena was sentenced to 1 year in prison for arson, with a 2-year probation. She didn't appeal, nor did she contact her family. Until last week, when I was cleaning out my mail, I found a message from an unfamiliar address. It contained only one short sentence. Sis, having fulfilled and sis. I'm working at Nightingale. Lena. Now, at exactly 10 p.m., a familiar yet strange figure appeared at the entrance of the nightclub. Lena, dressed in a sparkly miniskirt and towering high heels, staggered out to smoke. Her hair was dyed an exaggerated shade of purple, shimmering with an unhealthy sheen under the neon lights. Her once round cheeks had hollowed out, her high cheekbones now protruding sharply, her eyes intervingled large. She lit a cigarette, took a deep drag, then began coughing violently, her body bending over as if she might cough out her lungs. The balding middle-aged man emerged from the nightclub, wrapped his arm around her waist, and his hand slid naturally down to her hips. Lena didn't resist. Instead, she forced out a professional smile, allowing his hand to roam over her body. The rain grew heavier, the water droplets on the car window distorting the view outside. I started the car and drove away slowly. In the rearview mirror, I saw Lena being pulled back into the nightclub by the man, her figure eventually swallowed by the revolving door. My phone rang. It was a colleague from the institute, Sina, having fulfilled my obsession. For next week's International Materials Science Annual Conference, we need to finalize your keynote presentation slides. I'll handle it at the lab tomorrow, I replied, hanging up and turning on the car radio. Dr. Zina Aninlosai, a young scientist from our country, has developed a new type of nanomaterial, now patented internationally, which will revolutionize. I turned off the radio, focusing on the road. The rain tapped steadily on the windshield, the wipers moving rhythmically. 3 months passed, and Lena's name no longer appeared in my life. Uncle and his family seemed to have completely severed ties with me, aside from occasionally hearing from other relatives that they were spreading rumors, calling me a cold-blooded creature, a murderer who saw death and did nothing. The lab lights were always bright, like daylight. I immersed myself in my research, and time flowed by like water. The covers of international journals, the podium at academic conferences, the gold embossed signatures on patent certificates. My name appeared more and more in these places, while Lena's name gradually faded into some dark corner of the city. Until one cold December night, I was at the lab, double-checking the final batch of data when my phone vibrated. It was an unknown number. Hello? I pressed the answer button, keeping my gaze fixed on the computer screen. Is this Zina? A timid voice on the other end. I am Lena's roommate. My fingers paused on the keyboard. What's going on? Lena. She's really sick. The voice on the other end was stifling a sob. She told me not to tell you. But I think she's about to die. The data curve on the screen was steadily rising, showing no abnormalities. I saved the file and shut down the computer. Address? The old neighborhood in the eastern part of the city had no elevator. I climbed 6 flights of stairs before I found the door. A girl in her 20s answered, her face marked with remnants of nightclub makeup, her eyes red and swollen. Zina, she whispered, nervously rubbing her hands. Lena's inside. She's been coughing up blood lately. The cramped apartment reeked of mildew mixed with cheap perfume. Lena lay curled up in a filthy blanket on a single bed, resembling a withered twig. Hearing the noise, she slowly turned her head, her dull eyes lighting up for a brief moment when she saw me, only to fade again. Who told you to come, Rabsa? Her voice was so hoarse it was barely audible. Go away. I stood at the bedside, looking down at her. My once proud cousin, now just an empty shell. Her neck had suspicious red rashes, and her wrists were covered in needle marks. Is it AIDS? I asked calmly. Lena's roommate gasped, then covered her face and ran out of the room. Lena closed her eyes, a single dirty tear sliding down her cheek. Did you come to watch me make a fool of myself? She croaked, every word punctuated by a gasp. Are you satisfied? I didn't answer, merely surveying the shabby room. Empty liquor bottles piled up in the corner, pills and used needles scattered across the table. A dirty mirror hung on the wall, reflecting the distorted figure lying on the bed. Do your parents know? I asked. Suddenly, Lena laughed, the sound grating like sandpaper. They've too. They've long since considered me dead. A violent coughing fit interrupted her, and she grabbed the towel on her pillow, pressing it to her mouth. When she pulled it away, a dark red stain had soaked through. Go to the hospital, I said. I don't have the money. She collapsed onto the pillow, her breath barely audible. And what's the point? On the nightstand was a photo frame. Inside a picture of her and Jax at the entrance of their vocational school. In the photo, Lena was smiling brightly, full of hope. But now, that girl was gone, lost to a series of wrong choices. Sis, Lena suddenly called me, her voice as light as a feather. If you had stopped me back then, you'd hate me, I interrupted. Just like you hated those who tried to stop you from pursuing true love. She fell silent, her breathing growing more labored. Outside, her roommate's muffled sobs could be heard. I stepped out of the crumbling apartment building, the cold wind biting at my skin. I stood beneath the streetlight, watching the white vapor of my breath dissipate into the air. My phone buzzed with several unready mails, all discussing new projects. The world kept turning as it always did, unaffected by the tragedy of a single person. Back in my car, I turned on the heater and sat quietly for a moment. In the rearview mirror, a brightly lit window stood out. After a while, the light went out, and the entire building plunged into darkness. I didn't go directly home. Instead, I drove to the riverbank. The winter river was dark and heavy, reflecting the lights from both shores. I leaned against the railing, letting the cold wine tangle my hair. My phone vibrated again. It was an email from the institute. My promotion application has been approved. Starting next month, I'll be the director of the Nanomaterials Research Center. Attached are photos of my new office. Spacious and bright, with a panoramic view of the city. I replied with a simple receipt, then deleted the email. A cargo ship slowly passed by on the river, its horn echoing through the night. Back at home, I brewed a cup of hot tea and turned on the TV. The late-night news was reporting on a nightclub brawl, and for a brief moment, the familiar neon sign flashed across the screen. Nightingale. Lying in bed, I had a strange dream. I dreamt of Lena from high school, walking with me along the road home after school. She excitedly talked about her plans for the future. Sis, I'm going to get into a good university, find a good job, and make mom and dad proud. The sunlight in the dream was warm, shining on her youthful face. The next morning, I was woken by the sound of my phone ringing. It was the number from last night. Lena's roommate. Zena. The girl was crying so hard she could hardly speak. Lena. Her condition is serious. She's in the hospital. I pulled the curtains open, and the sunlight poured in. It was a beautiful day, perfect for outdoor activities. The curtains in the hospital room weren't drawn tightly, and a pale beam of sunlight slanted through, falling on Lena's frail, emaciated hand, once smooth and fair. Her hands were now covered with needle marks and bruises, like two wilted leaves resting on the bedspread. I stood at the door of the room, unwilling to go in. The doctor had just announced that Lena's organs were beginning to fail, and the remaining time could be counted in hours. Her parents, my long-unseen uncle and aunt, sat by the bed, one silent as a mountain, the other crying uncontrollably. Lena, look at Mom. My aunt's voice broke as she held her daughter's hand. Mom's here. Lena's eyes were half open, her gaze unfocused. Her breathing was shallow and rapid, like an old machine on the verge of shutting down. The heart monitor beside the bed beeped steadily, the only sign of life in the dead silence of the room. I turned to leave but heard a faint voice. Sis. I dreamt you stopped me. And I poisoned you. It felt so real. I'm sorry. All eyes turned toward the door. My uncle's gaze stabbed through me like a knife. But Lena's face showed an expression that was hard to decipher. Perhaps relief. Perhaps guilt. Or maybe just a hallucination from the medication. I'll go get the doctor, I whispered, stepping out of the room. At the end of the hallway, I took a deep breath. Perhaps at the edge of death, Lena had awake and the memories of her past life. But it no longer mattered. The March wine still carried a chill, and the smell of antiseptic lingered in the air. My phone vibrated in my pocket. It was an email from the Research Institute, breakthrough progress in human trials of the new nanomaterial, with production expected to advance ahead of schedule. When I returned to the hospital room, the doctor was performing a final check. He shook his head and softly spoke to Lena's parents. My aunt's crying grew louder, while my uncle remained frozen, like a statue. I stood in the corner, watching everything unfold. Lena's breathing grew slower and more shallow. Suddenly, her eyes widened, and she stared at the ceiling. University, she rasped. Ginkgo. So beautiful. No one understood what she was saying, except for me. That was the famous Ginkgo Avenue at the university she had entered in her past life. Its golden leaves carpeting the entire road in autumn. She had once spun around under the ginkgo trees, laughing and saying she wanted to take her graduation photo there. Lena's hand suddenly rose and reached into the air, as if trying to grab something invisible. Then, let out a low sigh. Her hand fell heavily, and the green line on the heart monitor turned into a straight red one. Lena. My aunt threw herself over her daughter, wailing loudly. The doctor glanced at his watch and noted the time of death. I quietly slipped out of the room and headed for the elevator. At the far end of the hallway, a young woman, One of Lena's colleagues from the nightclub sat sobbing with her head down. I didn't stop. Just walked out of the hospital. Lena's funeral was held on a rainy morning. The cemetery was located in the cheapest part of the outskirts of the city, and the gravestone was the simplest design, engraved only with her name and the years of her birth and death. There were very few people at the funeral, a few nightclubbings, two distant relatives, and me. My uncle and aunt stood by the grave, looking haggard. When the pastor finished the final prayer, my aunt suddenly turned toward me, her eyes burning with hatred. Are you satisfied now? Her voice was hoarse. Have you gotten your revenge? The rain soaked my black umbrella, the drops dripping down the edges. I didn't answer, just watched the workers slowly lower the coffin. Inside it lay a once vibrant life. Someone I had once hated to the core, someone connected to me by blood, my cousin. If only you hadn't stood by and watched. My aunt continued to accuse, but my uncle pulled her back. Let's go, he whispered. Don't make a scene here. They helped each other away, their backs bent and weary. The rain fell harder, and the others slowly left as well. In the end, only I remained, standing before Lena's grave, watching the raindrops fall onto the fresh petals. Lena was dead, taking her regrets and wrong choices with her. And yet I didn't feel any guilt. This was what you owed me in your past life. The rain stopped. I folded my umbrella, took one last look at the gravestone, and turned to leave. Time flowed like water. 5 years later, my nanomaterial technology was widely applied in the medical field, saving the lives of thousands of patients. At the annual Science and Innovation Awards ceremony, I was named the most beautiful scientist. Under the flashing lights, the host asked me what the secret to my success was. Choice, Hedinka felled my sigh. I smiled and replied, life is a chain made up of countless choices. And what was the most memorable choice you've made? A reporter suddenly asked. The room fell silent. I thought of Lena, of her hand reaching out into the void before she passed away. After the ceremony, having fulfilled my sigh, I walked home alone. The early spring wind still carried a chill, but the cherry blossoms by the roadside had begun to sprout. The setting sun stretched my shadow long, extending into the unseen distance. Such is life, when you choose one path, you inevitably miss the scenery of another. All I can do is walk my own path, firmly, having fulfilled my, without looking back. End.